just say straight up that there are some scriptures that are so much easier to preach about. There are some scriptures that are so much more fun. I'm going to tell you that this is one of the most difficult scriptures in all of the Bible that I've ever had to come up with something to say about. In fact, I probably spent twice as much time on today's message as I normally do. And part of that is because I didn't want you to sit here for 3 hours as I said everything that I wanted to say about today's scripture. So I'm going to have to save some of that for another week. However, I want to focus a little bit today on safety and taking risks. So during the last 3 months or so of the pandemic, there's two words that I've been hearing over and over again, dozens and dozens of times. And sometimes I hear these two words dozens of times in a single week. And in all honesty, I can't remember anyone ever saying these words to me before. Stay safe. Stay safe. Stay safe. Such good, important words. We need to stay safe. It's important that we take care of ourselves and also that we take care of one another and that we make sure we are staying safe. This is important. People are getting sick. People are dying. We need to stay safe. However, in today's gospel lesson from Matthew, Jesus says, I'm sending you out like sheep among the wolves. And as I read that, I think it doesn't sound like Jesus wanted his disciples to be very safe. It sounds like he's sending them out to be slaughtered, to die. But then think of these next words, the follow-up words to that. So be as wise as serpents, as innocent as doves, and beware of them. When you look at these words, you realize that they are actually survival tactics for doing ministry, for doing mission. For you see, Jesus has just gathered together his 12 disciples, the 12 apostles, and he's actually named them. Matthew has named them in his gospel. He wants to make sure that all of his readers understand that these are the followers, the closest people that Jesus has, and he's sending them out on their mission into the world. And he's telling them, be wise, be innocent, beware of them. And then he goes on to talk about who the them are, and we'll get to that in a moment. But think about that for a moment. Be wise, be innocent, beware. Words that I believe had great value for those disciples, that was their survival strategy in a way that they could accomplish their mission. Their mission was, according to Matthew, to go all over the land and preach and teach about the good news of Jesus. God's love is for everyone. Not just for some, but for everyone. And then they were supposed to also make people well, beginning with healing people who were sick. So this was their primary mission as followers of Jesus. Share with people this good news. How life can be so much better than how we're living it now. And take care of people, heal people, make sure that you do whatever you can so that people are well. That's basically the mission of Jesus in a nutshell. Let's look at each of those three parts very quickly. Be wise. We know that Matthew, as a gospel writer, has some really strong ideas about what Jesus meant when he said, be wise. In fact, in chapter 7, he says that, from the words of Jesus, those who listen to my words and put them into practice are like a wise person who builds his house on solid ground. And it doesn't matter how big or strong the storm is going to be, how violent the winds might be, or how much the flood waters may rise. that house will stand. According to Jesus in the Gospel of Matthew, to be wise meant to listen carefully to everything that Jesus said and put it into practice. To be innocent. I had to look this up and spend a little more time with this week, but the Gospel commentator and New Testament scholar Warren Carter says, in this instance, when we hear the words "be innocent," what that actually means is to pay attention to all that is good, and to be single-heartedly committed to all of that. It's about integrity. And the idea is we all know in our hearts what is good. We know what goodness looks like and feels like. And Matthew is telling us through the words of Jesus, be wholeheartedly committed to all that is good. And then finally, be careful. Beware of them. Now, we will get to the them in just a moment, but remember that Jesus is talking to his disciples gathered together before he's sending them out on their first big mission. And in a very real sense, he's setting up the disciples for all the rest of their missions, and he's setting it up for all of us who are future disciples of Jesus, for all of our mission in the world. Now, I mentioned Warren Carter, the New Testament scholar, and I want to tell you that besides the Gospels, two of his books have helped me to understand the New Testament and Jesus and what Jesus meant back then, more than anybody else. Besides the New Testament itself, besides the Gospels, Warren Carter has helped me to get a grasp. And there's two books in particular that I've shared with you before that have been especially helpful. Matthew and Empire is the shorter one. Initial Exploration, I believe, is what comes after the Koloa. But Matthew and Empire talks about the Roman Empire, what it was like for the disciples and for Jesus during that time. And then the second book is called Matthew and the Margins, and that's actually a very lengthy book that's a commentary that's kind of based on Matthew and Empire. It's about 900 pages, those two books. And so I'm going to try to condense the gist of that message in just a few moments here, just so that we can understand what it was like for Jesus and for his disciples, and then also for the disciples some 50 years later or so, because Matthew, as we know, was written about half a century after Jesus' death and resurrection, and it was a dangerous time to be a follower of Jesus. Now, I remember as a kid growing up, I thought, what was the big deal? Why would anyone care if a man walked around making people well and telling them about a happier place? It was a very big deal. And in Matthew and Empire and Matthew and the Margins, it finally made sense to me. I read these books maybe 15 to 20 years ago. But that's when it all of a sudden made sense to me what the message of Jesus was really all about back then and today. So what Warren Carter says is, if you're going to understand the message of Jesus, you have to understand the context that Jesus lived in. And the Roman Empire was the predominant context. And Jesus pointed out over and over again all that was wrong with the empire. And in the empire, most people didn't matter. There was a small handful of people that had a lot of value. Their lives had a lot of value. But the great majority of people just didn't matter. In terms of economics and politics, it was that small percentage of people that made the rules. It was that small percentage of people that benefited from most of the rules. And I have to tell you, as I was reading Matthew and Empire and Matthew and the Margins for the first time, I kept thinking, wait a minute, is he talking about first century Roman Empire, or is he talking about today? In America and throughout the world, there were so many parallels of what Jesus was saying was wrong about the empire that I kept thinking, that's what's wrong today. So anyway, let me go on here. So Warren Carter is explaining that there is this overarching force that's everywhere in the empire where most people truly don't matter. Their lives are expendable. But there are a small percentage of people whose lives have extremely high value. The emperor's family, and those of power and wealth that basically bow down to the emperor and worship the emperor. Peace in the days of Rome, Pax Romana, was based on violence, domination, and intimidation. For everybody to keep them in line with the values of the empire. And that peace was kept in check by a very large and well-funded military and police presence. So Warren Carter is saying this is what Jesus has been pointing out throughout his whole ministry. And if you don't believe it, look up how many times empire or kingdom, it's the same word, pops up in the Gospel of Matthew. I'll just tell you, 56 times I looked it up. I found at least 56 times that I personally counted where empire just kept showing up over and over and over. Now, most Bible translators tone that down and make it sound like, kingdom of God or kingdom of heaven. But basically what's happening here is, according to Warren Carter, which I believe, that Jesus is saying, here's all that's wrong with the empire. However, Jesus introduced what Warren Carter calls a counter-narrative, which is an alternative. In other words, here's all that's wrong with the empire. Let me tell you, if there's going to be an empire that God is happy with, we're going to call it the empire of heaven, or the kingdom of heaven. Here's what it looks like. And in that empire, every single person matters. Doesn't matter what gender they are, doesn't matter where they're from, doesn't matter what family they're born into, doesn't matter what birth rank they're a part of. Every single person matters in this counter-narrative, which Jesus promoted. Everybody matters. Every single life has ultimate value in God's eyes. Every single person deserves enough food on their tables to stay healthy, and everybody deserves to be healthy and to have the kind of health care they need. If you think I'm making any of this up, just read through Matthew. It's there over and over and over. And Warren Carter is basically just saying, it's just so evident. You read the text, read every place that Jesus talks about empire or kingdom, and it's all right there for the taking. So I told you a few moments ago, I'll tell you who the them is when Jesus said, beware of them. Up until recently, I kept thinking the them is the empire. Beware of the empire, because this is all that's wrong with the empire. And as I was reading through that again this week, something just clicked inside my head. Jesus is not telling his disciples to beware of the empire. He's telling them to beware of all the good religious people who they worship with, who support the empire, who bless the empire, who say, it's not that bad. Let's just go along with it. It's too risky to not go along with the empire. It's very clear in the text that we read this morning. Beware of them. The them Matthew spells out are those who will drag you into court and into their synagogues It doesn't say that they're government buildings. It's basically, beware of the people that you worship with who will drag you and into their churches, basically, and judge you for not going along with the empire. That's who we need to be careful of. That's where we need to beware. And all of a sudden it hit me, and I thought, our main job in terms of being aware and being careful is not all that's out there. It's what's in here and what's in here. Because when Jesus said, I'm sending you out as sheep among the wolves, I think we all have some wolf within us. There's a part of me, and probably a part of each of us, that wants to say, oh, the empire's not that bad. It'll get better. Let's not rock the boat. You know, let's just try to be more unified and go along with it. That Jesus is saying, that's what we need to beware of. Compromising the values of Jesus. Compromising the values that Jesus said, these are God's values. Yes, we need to be careful of the empire. Jesus didn't say, stop that. But first and foremost, be careful of what's going on in here. Because as religious people today, just as religious people back then, we can just as easily fall into that same trap of thinking, oh, it's not that bad. Things will get better. Let's be patient. Those same three survival tactics are just as relevant today as they were 2,000 years ago. Be wise. Read the Gospels. Think about what Jesus said is valuable to God. Be innocent. Look at all that is good. Listen to what is good in the Gospels, amongst your community of faith, amongst your friends, out in nature. Just all that is good. Pay attention and be wholeheartedly committed to what is good. And beware of what's going on in here. I would add, from the words of Jesus, in terms of other survival tactics, be compassionate. Be humble. Be courageous. There's a lot going on in the empires of today that have nothing to do with the values of God. What Jesus said 2,000 years ago still is true today. But let's also look within us and around us, knowing that Jesus said, beware of them. Beware of us. Again, be wise. Be innocent. Beware. Be courageous.